Hello, this is Todd. Welcome to another edition of Vermont Wine Media. And this time I've got another stack of books that we've read, and I've been working on them, this particular stack, since just after Christmas time. And I've got another set of books I'm working on now, but I thought it was high time to go over some of these. And the first one I want to start with, actually, caveat, this pile of books, these are all books that are written by people that did something else or did some other writing before they got to writing a book. So, if there's any kind of a theme there, that's it. But they all are wine related, except for the first one. But it bears mentioning probably because even though this is a project I've been thinking about working on for a while, I think the concepts and the straightforwardness of this book, Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, made me realize it was silly for me not to just get going, and because the tools are all out there. Now, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk, Director of Operations of Wine Library TV and of Vayner Media. Basically, this isn't a huge book. This is no tour de force. This is basically like Gary talking to you, straight up. And I know that he's taken a few hits for it being so tiny. But I've seen a lot of coffee table books that have nice pictures but no substance whatsoever. So you can't judge the book just by its cover. What Vaynerchuk is talking about here is using the new media options to execute on new thinking about personal branding and branding in general. Now, I think that even though he's got some gigs working for some fairly big organizations, and I'm hoping that's very lucrative for him, because little Misha's going to need to go to college someday. But I think that the great value of this is for the small business person and the startup entrepreneur to really think about how they fit in to the scene that they're trying to become part of and make the best use of the tools that are available. I urge you to read this soon because some of the stuff is very timely and may not be relevant 2 years from now as far as the actual pointers towards technologies. But the way of thinking, I think, is simply a new methodology, and so there's a lot to be gained from here, and I'll probably go back over this again. And it's been interesting how many people I've met who aren't into wine at all that have come across this book and thought they got something out of it. So, for what it's worth, get on it and crush it. Alright, let's put this over here. Okay, the next book. Drink This, Wine Made Simple by Dara Moskowitz Grumdahl. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get pronunciations right. I know Vaynerchuk's because I hear it on a regular basis. This book really is a basic guide to wine. It's not written for aficionados or people who have been exploring wine for a really long time, or even a few years. I have to say, I mean, Ms. Grumdahl, she's a writer. She's done some work in, she writes for Minnesota Monthly, editor-in-chief of Real Food. She was a contributor to Gourmet, which that magazine has passed on, although I heard some word that it may be being revived again. Bon Appetit and some of the other Condé Nast things. So she's done some writing. She's even she won 4 James Beard Awards out of 7 nominations, which is really good. I mean, that's serious work. That said, again, the book is fairly simple. What it does is it attempts to work people through a bunch of basic varietals to give them an idea of how to systematically introduce themselves to wine flavors and aromas. And so for that, I say it's actually a pretty good little primer. It covers Zinfandel, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah. So, Sangiovese too. Get for something a little earthier. So, very bare bones. I mean, that's this Tempranillo Pinot Noir. And that is this much of the book, talking about those varietals and how to go about systematically tasting through them, having a tasting party. So again, I didn't get a whole lot out of this, but I could see how some of her techniques could be useful for educators introducing people to wine, or for people that want to introduce themselves. I have to say though, the last two chapters, Money, 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 and Restaurant Confidential, very, very good information. Money, Money, Money is basically about the formula of the economics of putting wine into a bottle, starting with the grapes cost, the land. And Restaurant Confidential is basically about how wine should be portrayed or presented in restaurant, what restaurants owe consumers as far as an educational experience, and also there's a wine drinker's bill of rights, things we should expect from restaurants and sommeliers. So I have to say, you know, although I got limited information out of this book, the last two chapters were great. You could even start there and then poke through the beginning, but interesting, definitely interesting. Her writing style, she uses like gazillions of sommeliers, so there's a little hyperbole, but I think it definitely keeps it moving along and interesting, especially in the first sections. So, drink this. Alright, this is a book that I can't say that I read in the last few weeks because I've been reading it for a couple of years and I always go back to it. This is Techniques in Home Winemaking, the Comprehensive Guide to Making Chateau-Style Wines by Daniel Pombianchi. Mr. Pombianchi has been a contributing writer for Winemaker magazine for several years now, and is very knowledgeable, and this is an awesome book. This is like a mini winemaking Bible, covering everything from, you know, basic analysis of musts and wines, to the process, clarification, stabilization, oak barrels, how to take care of oak barrels, sparkling wine, ice wine, troubleshooting. And you know how you know it's a good book, usually, is that when it's got a table of contents like this, like 10 pages long, and then my favorite, the index, that actually is useful. For what it's worth, Drink Wine also had an index too. But this book is great. If you're interested in the process of winemaking at all, even not home winemaking or winemaking at home, this is really great, because really the process of making wine at home and making wine commercially is really a matter of scale. And this really is a great analysis of what makes winemaking a craft as opposed to what it becomes when it becomes an industrial process. So like I said, I keep this one towards the top because Tony and I refer to this regularly.